All right, I did want to make this one continuous video, but I'm just gonna have to break it up into two parts. So for the beginning of the second part, I wanted to go ahead and dial in on the rear of the Hot Toys. So this is the Hot Toys version. This is what came out in approximately 2013, 2014, thereabouts. This is the first offering, and it's exactly the same, to my knowledge, as the most recent release that they did, which was just an exact re-release of this first version. So I did admit that I liked how much brighter the lights are on this version than the Jazzinc version. The lenses that are used on the Jazzinc version are much more accurate than the Hot Toys. On top of that, on the Jazzinc, the entire fender assembly is one congruent body assembly, where the Hot Toys is not as movie accurate or as pleasant in terms of the continuity of the body lines, right? The Hot Toys one is a little bit more, how should I say it? Modular. There's various modules and things that were tooled, body parts that were tooled and then put together and either adhered or screwed in together or clicked in or any of that stuff. And we can see that by looking at these lines here. So if you notice, like the housing of where these lights are, these lights are a separate piece that are kind of clicked into, or however they're adhered into the actual body of the fender. You could see a seam line in the fin right there, whereas opposed to the Jazzinc, there is no body line. That is all one congruent body piece. You know what? Let me not speak out of ignorance. I don't know if the tooling for the fins on the Jazzinc are one full body piece or if it was two body pieces, because remember, I did point out some cracks that I had on the interior of the wheel well on both sides. So if they did piece various pieces of body together, at the end of it, they either milliputted it or bondoed it, sanded, and then the end paint job lent itself to look like one solid piece or one continuous body piece, where as opposed to the Hot Toys, you have a seam line here on the fin, and then you have the housing of the lights as a separate piece that is put into the body of the wheel well, right? And then also, if you notice on the interior side of the fins, there's these lines. So this comes apart. There are a couple of access kind of covers where there's screws, I'm assuming. You can kind of see them there. There's one, there's two, and then there's a third over here. So that's what keeps this body part together, these two body parts. So in that aspect, the Hot Toys, it's not as continuous, which adds definitely an accuracy, or rather an inaccuracy aspect to this version of the Batmobile, although both are really great, right? Another thing as well, so some of the inaccuracies, these exhaust ports are not nearly as accurate as the Jazzinc. And also these thrusters, instead of them being, and I'll give you kind of a side view of them. Instead of them being like a ball, you should have a wider exhaust tip or thruster tip with kind of like a flange where the bolts are, and then behind that flange a kind of like a bulbous part of the piping of that thruster. On this one, it's all one continuous piece. The bolts are on this kind of it's a larger diameter that's kind of beveled into the end of it. So that's definitely not accurate. It doesn't have that plate with those two extra tubings on the side and that one extra tubing going vertical. So in that aspect, the rear of this vehicle is not nearly as accurate as the Jazzinc. Now, I will say, in terms of the finish of the Hot Toys, there's no sanding marks. I don't know for sure. Once again, I don't want to speak out of ignorance, but it seems as though the Hot Toys version was made using a certain color plastic, and not necessarily having to require a paint job. Because I will say the paint surface, the glare of the way that the lights shine off of the Hot Toys is much more continuous, much smoother than the Jazzinc. On Jazzinc, I have various divots, which I'll get to once we get to the other comparisons on the various sides, the top, cockpit, front, so on and so forth. But the Hot Toys is smoother. I mean, you could tell this compared to when I was showing the back of that one of the Jazzinc, this just looks silky smooth. Okay, any way that you shine a light on it, you just get a smooth and congruent and symmetrical, whatever angle you put the light at. You're not going to get really dimpling or a misdirection of light going somewhere else because it has either a divot or a somewhat of like a dent on the body surface itself. I would say that my satisfaction with the smoothness of the surface of the Hot Toys, I prefer over the Jazzinc. We'll get into that later. I know other collectors and other people that have purchased the Jazzinc version have those type of issues as well. It's something that we saw on the initial batch of the Jazzinc ones. I don't know to what measures other batches are going to have it fixed. I was a part of batch 1. There was the initial reviewers batch, right? And that was called the test batch. And then there's the production batch that went out to all the people that purchased it off of the website. And I will say that there are some body dents and asymmetrical lines, or basically just dents that kind of break up your eye as you're watching the light go across the surface of the vehicle. I will note on that. I'm kind of going on a tangent right now, but I will note on that when I get to it on the Jazzinc. But I think that pretty much sums up well the rear for the comparison against the Jazzinc. Like I said, this is we're fortunate enough as collectors where we have 2 companies that have attacked this. So complaints and caveats noted, but the reality is that it's pretty damn amazing that we have all of these options. And I'm assuming more to come, right? Not really much to get into here. I typically keep some of the extra accessories like those discs and any other thing inside of that compartment. It's kind of easy storage. That's also where the power on and off switch is for the lights. In terms of the engineering for the lighting, the Hot Toys does not have an option to turn on any one light or segment of lights or series of lights. When you turn that switch on, it turns on the rear lights, the cockpit lights, and the front headlights. So it is cool. I mean, that's another thing that's like, although there's differences, I think so long as the fact that we get lights, I don't know. I don't really have a preference, I guess, is what I'm saying in terms of whether there's a series of specific lights that you could turn on at once, or turning on all of them at the same time. Although, it could be a reduction in overall consumption. The fact that you can kind of segment the Jazzinc. A lot of us are going to be having the the Batmobile kind of facing either catty-cornered forward or kind of sideways. So not all lights at all times are going to be visible necessarily, based on the way that I'm going to have mine, and also the way that I've seen other collectors have theirs as well. So getting onto the side, we're going to take a look at some of the continuations of the various things that we've seen, right? So Jazzinc was able to give us some diecast pieces. So the diecast pieces that we were given is going to be this gas cap, and then the bat symbols in the center of the wheel hubs, right? So once again, accuracy, and I'll just say it now, accuracy of the overall form of this Batmobile, Jazzinc takes the cake without question. shine this light on that. There we go. Sorry, had a little malfunction with my flashlight. I just changed out the batteries. Anyways, so we did get diecast, like I said, diecast the bat symbol. If you're able to get a really good picture of the screen used, this looks extremely accurate. Not to say that the one on the Hot Toys looks horrible, but it is kind of like one piece, and there is a kind of like a molding plate, like a base that is on the back side, basically with the mating side of the back of this symbol to the rim surface back here. And it kind of breaks it up because then it looks like one circular silver symbol as opposed to the bat logo being its own machined piece. That being said, and I don't know, darn it, I don't know exactly how accurate it is to the movie, but I will say that the aluminum looks like unfinished raw aluminum. Like if you were to go to Lowe's or Home Depot and get a sheet of aluminum or any aluminum machined piece, it would have kind of the same finish, the same luster of kind of unfinished raw aluminum. I will say that at least for the gas cap, accurate or not, I do prefer the paint job and the smoothness of the Hot Toys one. That being said, I mean, it is cool that we got, an aluminum gas cap. Anytime that you get die cast, at least in hand, right? You sometimes from far away, they've gotten so good with their paint applications that a lot of times from far away, you sometimes can't tell whether something is actual metal or if it's painted to be metal, right? So where you really get the feel for somebody going above and beyond and giving you die cast is when you handle it, when you feel the cold touch of the metal, and when you feel the weight of it when you're manipulating it. That's when you can. Those are the times that you can appreciate those types of details, right? So they're not something that's a kind of a visual thing. So this is the magnet that we were given by Jazzinc. And I can't get this to pick up the gas cap on a consistent basis. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So it does open fine. I would say that there's not really a finish to the interior of that gas cap where the fill port would be for the actual gas. I don't know whether this is more accurate or whether the Hot Toys is more accurate. I'll pan over to the Hot Toys real quick and show you. That's the way that one looks. You can see the luster. You can kind of see a little bit of not like a tarnish, but a finish of maybe dirty hands on the very edges of it. And if I open this, the fill port is silver. I don't know which one is more accurate. In terms of contrast and what looks more finished, I would give it to the Hot Toys as opposed to Jazzinc. Jazzinc might be picking up the light source. So let me kind of block a little bit of the light and see if maybe... there you go. It's essentially unpainted and black. So it's the same color as the base of the body, right, of the chassis. One thing that I would like to also point out is in terms of the engineering, I equated this to my best friend as, although the Teslas are really cool, and stick with me here, Teslas and electric vehicles are cool, right? But the reality is that the manufacturers like Tesla, Rivian, and those electric car manufacturers, they're killing it in terms of the battery technology and all that stuff. They are the pioneers, right? Tesla is the pioneer of all this. They got it all started. That being said, you can go into any forum when it comes to Tesla and see that in terms of like the body components like body panels, quarter panels, doors, the way the seams seam up, the dashboard, the center console, the seats, a lot of the fitment is just not right? And so things are a little bit loose, or they creak and they make sounds. They don't sound as sturdy. And I would say that you know, I guess to drive that point home, Tesla might have the edge up when it comes to the electric cars, but in terms of building cars, traditional manufacturers like Ford, GMC, Chevrolet, they've been making cars for so long that they don't necessarily have those type of fitment issues or execution of precision in terms of tolerances and all that stuff. So in terms of their engineering is top notch physically, right? So what I would say is there's a couple things on the couple contrasts between the Hot Toys and the Jazzinc that I prefer, some on the Jazzinc and some on the Hot Toys. One of those things is how floppy the gas cap on the Jazzinc is. And this... Well, I guess it's better that it's doing it on camera, right? I've continued to have difficulties. I'm going to use the magnet that was included with the, unless my son moved it, which I feel like he did. Yeah, definitely. Sorry guys, give me a moment. I am looking for the magnet that came with the Hot Toys that I put here, but I think my son might have taken it. Okay. Well then. All right, let me pause. Okay, I got another magnet. It's not the one that the Hot Toys came with. I had that out, but apparently it's been misplaced. So I'm just going to use one of these. Hopefully this is, yep, that's strong enough. So the magnet that's included on the Jazzinc, at least on mine, this included magnet is not necessarily strong enough to kind of get the gas cap up. That's not a big deal. You know, I can compensate for it with the fact that I have other magnets. You know, I can get a piece of material, felt or something like that, and kind of put it on a stronger magnet. That way I don't scratch anything up. But it would have been nice had the included one been strong enough to get it. Or maybe it's the square magnet that's in there. So the magnet that's on the actual gas cap is right here. Okay. And so that's what creates the magnetic attraction and allows you to lift it up. But getting back to my point, this is, if you could see, there's nothing that is fitting this tightly enough to control. It just feels kind of loose. It doesn't feel like it is a controlled close. Like if I wanted to go ahead and put the gas cap right there and leave it. And now this is a complete hypothetical, right? I don't know why in posing you'd have a half open gas cap unless Batman was holding it to gas it up, which would be a kind of a not so cinematic portion of Batman history. So I don't know why we'd be posing it. But, you know, I'm just going over kind of the engineering and some of the smaller details of this. So, you know, the fact that this is as floppy as it is, on something this expensive, it just kind of feels either under-engineered or a little bit cheap. And to give you a contrast, the Hot Toys is about the same, maybe a slight difference. But like, if I wanted to go ahead and put it there, it'll stay. Like, I feel that there's plastic or part of the hinge that will keep it from falling. So, you know, and I also don't feel like I can rattle this one as much either. Like I can move it, but I can't really just rattle it the way that I can the other one. Like this one just kind of moves more solidly and like it's a controlled, like the hinge is a little bit tighter, I would say. So I kind of prefer the engineering or the tolerance on the Hot Toys fill port on that one. What's up, Papito?
Okay, I'm not.
All right. Don't you love pause on on videos? All right, so getting back to it, some of the other things that I want to kind of contrast is the canopy and the windows. So that's not what I meant to do. Sorry, guys. I am not a professional YouTuber or videographer. I'm doing this with my cell phone the best I can. All right, so one thing that I want to kind of pick up is there's some, if you can see, not really there, not really there, here, okay? You can kind of see those indentions right there. And I understand that from what Yost said on his video initially was that there is kind of like a drying process, and I don't know if it's the curing state or what, but after it comes out of the mold, there is a release of heat, right? It has to cool down, which I understand that. So it essentially, if it doesn't cool down at a certain rate, at a certain temperature, you will have lines that kind of like fall into each other, or basically you'll have a depression on your Batmobile. And I will say there is quite a few different places. I'm not really picking that one up very well, but there's another one here. When you run your finger, my finger across it, I can tell. Let me see if I can pick it up with the, yeah, there you go. Let me see if I can get it again. There it is. So there is this curvature, like right around here, this curvature kind of goes, it angles up and it forms this line, right? So where that curvature is, there's a depression here that is not, it's not a smooth transition between this flat surface to being kind of angled up and over. It does angle and it does have that body line, but where that transition is, there's a depression. So, you know, nitpick or not, it is there. If you compare that depression, that I can kind of, there you go. I can kind of pick it up right there. Where that yellow light is, that's a little bit of the depression of the body itself. It's not the paint. I don't believe that they sanded so deep that they caused a gouge there, but it's just part, if I'm not mistaken, of that drying process. So that's a little bit of a depression there. If I go over to the Hot Toys, in that same area, and granted, you can argue that this, you know, this is a separate body line, so it's not as smooth. There's not that need for the contouring of one whole piece to be like that. So yes, that's true. But I'll tell you what, when I look at it, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, well, this body line is inaccurate to the movie. There's all types of body lines that are accurate to the movie that it's not out of the realm of possibility when you're looking at it in terms of it messing up the satisfaction of you looking at these lines, that line is there, right? So in terms of like the overall smoothness of the surface of this Batmobile, some of those indentions that are on the Jazzinc are not the same. They're not as many. There is a couple slight ones on the Hot Toys, and we'll get to that. I'm not gonna be biased and be like, okay, well the Hot Toys is perfect. There are some ever so slight impressions or divots, or even kind of like a you could see, especially like around the gas cap on the Hot Toys, there is like this perimeter line that you can somewhat see maybe from the molding process. Let me see if I can pick it up. I mean, it's so slight you can barely even pick it up. It's right here. And when I tell you that it's more of I can't feel it. I know I can see it, but I can't feel it to the touch in terms of there being a difference of height or thickness of the paint there. Does it mess up my ability to appreciate the body lines on this? No. And I think it's more so because there's so many on the Yost one. I'll be honest, it kind of messes up my vibe when I'm enjoying this. One of the places that's most apparent to me is I've got this line, and this one does seem like they sanded it too flat, and it's right here. So if you see, I'm trying to get the light to kind of go across that flat spot. There it is. That flat spot right there kills me. And there's like a divot, and then there's three kind of congruent flat spots, or rather divots. Like this should be This entire body line right here should be one flat piece. And I have a divot here, a divot here, and it's mainly those two divots. And let me see if I can pick that up. You could see one there, right there. It's visible and it is noticeable to the touch. So first one is here. And what you'll do is you see those two shade spots. You have a dark spot here and a dark spot here. You have a high spot, low spot, low spot. So you have high spot where you'll see the light, a low spot because it is lower than the body line, so you'll see more shadow in there. Then you'll have a high spot here where you see more of the light being picked up, and then a divot here, which is a low spot. Anybody that does auto body work, that's just incongruent sanding. I don't know if this was filled and then sanded, or if there was something at the factory that was messed up here, like a glob of paint or something that they had to sand. But when they sanded, they overcompensated. And for me, it's one of two things, right? Either they sanded something here because there's a flat spot here. So it tells me that something was sanded. So either they sanded too much and they overcompensated and didn't backfill it to then sand it and get it flat, or that is one of those natural kind of divots that occurs from the cooling process. Either way, I think when I first unboxed this version, there was so many of those type of like body lines and divots that, going back to the satisfaction per dollar spent, I'll be honest, it kind of killed my vibe when I opened it. There's another line that we'll get to here in a second, but let me finish with the side. So Canopy, I mean, you could tell by the height of this window. I mean, I'll say it again, the accuracy of the form of this Batmobile, Jazzinc diorama, is superior to the Hot Toys. There's no questioning that. I do want to point out, let me see if I can freehand this. You could see a little bit of orange peeling, and you can denote it when that's the center of the light. That's going to look smooth, right? But as the light gets diffused, the light is going to get diffused based on the smoothness of this surface. And you could see this micro orange peel where you see kind of low spots and high spots. That means that there's a not perfectly smooth surface on this. It looks like it almost has a grit to it. So on top of that, that doesn't match this. This has like this smooth orange peeling effect. So you could see like the center of the light, right? Now, as the light gets diffused, it's going to get diffused over, and there's another low spot that I was talking about. There's going to be another, the way that light is reflected, if it is a completely smooth, like satin surface, you're not going to see any of that small, tiny, as it is, pitting. That is a orange peel type of effect. And that either occurs from something not being sanded completely smooth, or a drying and repainting process that's occurring too quickly in between coats, okay? Or too heavy a spraying of a coat. And I would say overall, like from far away, it's not like you're going to pick up on that. It's not like you're going to look at this from, any considerable distance and be like, hey, that looks horrible. It doesn't look horrible, right? But my criticism comes from, again, that the ratio of satisfaction per dollar spent. I do feel that in terms of the price and overall cost of this Batmobile, that is something that should have not, it's something that I'm unsatisfied with the overall smoothness of the body in terms of the divots and the deviations. I mean, you can kind of tell, right? It's what I can equate this to is, does anybody remember like the rubbing stones in the 90s, like the rubbing soap stones? It has this smooth kind of like impression here. That one's somewhat big. You could see that dimpling and that orange peel effect. So it's not a completely smooth surface in terms of the actual, the body lines, the actual body form of the Batmobile, and also the paint job itself has somewhat of a slight orange peel effect to it, to where the light doesn't just kind of like, it doesn't smoothly flow. I don't know how much of this you're able to pick up on camera. And I don't, you can agree with me or disagree with me. I'm telling you my experience from what it is that I'm seeing. I'm trying my best to kind of let you, point it out and explain it to the best of my knowledge and ability, right? I'm not a professional painter. I'm not a professional painter when it comes to auto body and all that stuff or whatever. I have done some when I was in the military, but, not a professional. So I don't want to seem like I know everything. But you could see the orange peel effect here. And if I compare that to the way that the light bounces off, so, here's the Batmobile from Yoast, from Jazzinc. And then I'm going to swap over to so this is the Hot Toys. And as you can see, like, this is the same bulbs that's overhead. It's got because it's not as glossy a finish as the Jazzinc Batmobile, this has much more of a somewhat right in between satin and matte almost in comparison to that Batmobile. Like, you could see, obviously, this is a much more glossy. And here's how I'll prove that. Overhead, we have 4 lights. Okay, so the light source that's shining off of these Batmobiles are coming from these 4 lights. So when you see these 4 lights, which would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, this is symmetrical and diffused, and you can't really tell what that light source is. It's just random 4 rays of light. Now, when you see it on here, you can clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4. So in terms of the overall finish of the Jazzinc Batmobile as opposed to the Hot Toys Batmobile, the difference is that this one is more of a satin, almost matte, and this one is almost a satin. I can't even call it a satin. This is more of a semi-gloss satin. It's not high gloss. It's not, mirror gloss, definitely. But it's more of a semi-gloss satin look in comparison to this one. So, getting back to my original point in terms of the orange peel effect that you could see here, like that, all those tiny microscopic not microscopic, you could see them through the video. All of that dimpling, that's called orange peel effect, okay? You can see it on the outer bands of the light as the brightness of the light being reflected kind of dissipates and gets further away from the center, from the origin of that light. You'll see kind of the refraction and reflection of light going back that way. That's caused by small divots from, it's essentially on a very small scale, bumps. It is very small bumpiness of the paint job itself, which is called orange peel. And when you compare that to the Hot Toys, this just has, if I run this light across that entire body line to reflect in the camera, at no point do you see it deviate, do you see it dip because of an incongruency or asymmetry or a divot in the body lines. The body line or the surface of this body for the Hot Toys is much more of a congruent, smooth surface. And once again, you can see things like this, but I don't see many lines on this Batmobile where you have the type of pitting or dimples, like the depressions that you have on the Jazzinc. So when you're looking at this Batmobile, like I'll give you, like if I walk into a room, right, and I see light reflecting over that quarter panel right here, that front panel, the center, everything just kind of looks smooth as it goes over the various curves of this Batmobile, which is what makes this Batmobile unique, right? It's the amount of curves and body lines and contours that makes it so hard to recreate this Batmobile. And so, they both look amazing. Like Jazzinc, just going from this Hot Toys looks good, right? But you get to the back of the Jazzinc and that looks like it's ready to be on the set for a model size shoot. It is a phenomenal execution of the accuracy of the form. And overall, like, you know, from this distance, you can't tell any of those sanding lines that I was talking about. That, you know, you have to catch it at the right light. I've noticed on camera, it doesn't come up nearly as apparent. To the naked eye, I can pick it up. It's something that I'm not happy about, but it doesn't take away fully from the joy of being able to look at this at a glance and appreciate it. I just think it's one of those points that for a collectible as expensive as this one, that I feel should have been corrected. I don't think that I should be able to see any of the sanding work that went into this. It should be a generally smooth body surface. But anyways, yeah, we were talking about basically the light being reflected all the way through when you're walking around the Batmobile. So if I take this, you know, and I go at different angles in the same way that I did, so you could see it right there. I hadn't even noticed this one prior to, but there is a divot there. You can see that the light all of a sudden kind of dips and falls into that valley as opposed to going congruent, like it looking symmetrical. So, you know, where I'm going here, there's quite a few dimples and incongruencies there. That's it breaks up your when you're viewing it from a distance. You know, it's just like a commercial for cars. They have it under a light in a studio, and they move the camera or they drive the car, and you're like, oh wow, it looks so amazing. Well, it looks amazing because the lights are reflecting off of it, and a part of what looks, you know, tempting to the eye is the fact that the light goes off of the surface in such a symmetrical, smooth fashion. But I will say that on this Batmobile, there are times where the light just kind of picks up something that you're like, okay, wait, what the hell is that? See, like right here, we've got, you know, low spots and high spots. And I believe that's from the cooling, and I get it. But for this price, I'm not expecting for there to, I mean, regardless of what the process is, I know that the process is, you know, that the cooling affects those, the body impressions. But at the end of the day, we still paid what we paid for this. And that's something technically that I'm slightly unhappy about. The one thing that I will finish up with on the side at least, and then I'll do a part 3, is let's get into the canopy comparison. So okay. All right. So don't know if you can see it, but there's something going on here where there's, I don't know, there's a little bit of a dip. That's not a smooth line right there. I would say the tolerances are pretty good. Let me just go ahead and open. So for this canopy, if you open, like you tilt the front up first and then follow it with the rear, smooth, okay? Here's what I will say though. If I was just to go ahead and push it back and leave it right there, okay? Here's one thing that in terms of, this is an engineering point, something that I'm unsatisfied with, and in comparison to the Hot Toys, which we'll get to, I've already looked at the bottom. I'm like, am I missing a rail? Am I missing, you know, a point at which this goes in, and maybe I'm just not connected onto it, or I'm not on a surface that disables or inhibits the ability for this to rock? And the answer is no. I have looked inside of this Batmobile, and there's nothing on this side from keeping it, to keep the canopy from falling down. So let me angle this camera in a way that you can pick up the that silicone rubber or rubberized kind of slide piece, which is right there. That piece right there, okay? There we go. All right. So there's nothing to keep this from falling down. In other words, this surface here, or basically that front post that goes into that slot that allows the canopy to slide forward, that's the only thing that is holding this from going fully into the cockpit. There's not a rail and a notch here that would inhibit it from falling down. Okay, so that stop right there avoids for it to just be able to come out easily, right? I mean, you can't, and we'll take off the canopy in just a moment, but there's not any type of rail or anything inhibiting this canopy from being able to go up enough and down enough to have this rocking motion if it's halfway up. And, you know, one argument that you could make is like, you're not really ever going to have it halfway, right? And I get that. But this motion right here, this canopy touches the interior portion of this body line, okay? So along the way somewhere, that's going to create wear and tear on that surface. On top of that, at the price point that this is, I was just a little underwhelmed in terms of how the same way that I said with the gas cap and how floppy that is, that you know, when you open and close it, this to me also, when you're talking about a collectible that is this allured, anticipated, wanted, and expensive, I was not expecting for that to occur, okay? And it's just surprising to me that in terms of the engineering phase of it, that this didn't get pointed out and improved upon or changed, okay? Now, to give it a direct comparison to the Hot Toys, which we'll do, this one, same thing, kind of lift up from the back. Now, it does have a pull, but even without this pull, and I wish I could take it off right now, without this pull, you can't push this down. And the reason why is there's a rail on the interior portion of that canopy that inhibits the canopy from falling or going lower. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about right now. This ledge, and I'll do it with the red light. This ledge right here, there is a body line of the actual canopy. So if you see, that ledge right there inhibits the canopy from ever rocking and not going straight. So when you look at the interior of it, so yes, it does have this rod, right? And that further increases the stability of it. And you can argue whether that's accurate to the movie or not. I'm not too sure on what model it was. I don't recall referencing it on any of the stills that I made or took pictures of while I was watching the movie. That being said, though, even if I was to remove this pole, which seems to be a little harder than I'd like, this canopy doesn't go down. And the way I'll prove it to you is this has play in it, right? It has play. It'll go up and down. If I was to push this hard enough and this didn't have a support here, it would go up and down. So let me put this about halfway the way I did with the Jazzinc. You see that when I put pressure on that ledge, you can see it flex down. That tells you that is what is inhibiting or stopping this canopy from going further into the actual cockpit itself, okay? So that ledge is what saves it from ever rocking and doing that kind of maneuver that the Jazzinc did. So, you know, in terms of what I expected, I didn't expect this. That cheapens the feel to me. And once again, the same way where like I don't really notice if this gas cap is die-cast unless I touch it. If this is closed, this Batmobile is amazing. But the minute that I go to take it off and I feel how loose and rocky it is, it takes away from the experience of this looking like a luxury piece collectible to, okay, this kind of feels hobby made by somebody who is a professional. I know that sounds harsh. But what I would say is Yoast, first and foremost, is a fan of these licenses. This, like many of us, this to me, 89, anything 89, 1/12 or 1/6, this is my grail. The vast majority of my collection on display upstairs is 89 Batman. The cowl, the grapnel guns, the posters, the figures, all that stuff. 89 is my jam. Returns is my jam. It is what I love most about collecting, okay? So while I understand his enthusiasm and I love Jazzinc's passion to getting and reflecting the details correctly and the accuracy of what it is that we see on film and kind of putting together the various versions of, you know, you've got the hero car, you've got the car for this specific scene or that specific scene. And he does a really great job of noticing the details of the best portions of all those various versions and then combining them together and putting them in one ultimate version. That is undeniable. But in terms of the execution of the precision of, for me, the surface of the body, the paint job itself, some of the tolerances of the panels, these type of engineering oversights, how floppy this gas cap is, that's something that makes me appreciate it a little bit less, and frankly, it lessens the satisfaction of the experience of having this vehicle. Something else that I'm going to go into is I'm going to now remove this canopy, which is fairly easy to do, which is awesome. Now, the cockpit. This cockpit is outstanding, okay? In terms of the detail, the amount of correct gauges, all of the knobs, buttons, lights, emergency covers, all right, so to turn on the interior is number 3. Okay, so I'm going to turn on number 3. It focused on that. That's good. So that cockpit is absolutely phenomenal. Okay. The minor gripes that I could say is with the lights on, some of the detail of the gauges and that computer kind of get flushed out, right? The original gauges, aviation gauges especially, I was an aviator in the Coast Guard. A lot of our gauges were bottom lit. So on the gauge itself, there was a little ridge here, a little portion of it that had either 1, 2, or 3 lights, and it would ambiently light the cockpit. Okay. So in terms of the cockpit instruments, the fact that I don't know if I can zoom in and you would be able to read any of it, but the fact that there's tiny legible like reset and ignition and all that print, all that fine detail in there is spectacular. The steering wheel itself is it's steel. It is metal. Okay, this is a quality piece. This is going to be aluminum. Aluminum is not magnetic, so this magnet does not stick to that. But that is metal. It keys into a hole that's there. The seats. You could see the continuation of the amount of detail. There's lights. There are knobs. Let me kind of lift There you go. That's a little better view. So, you know, you could see the knobs, all the lights. You have the mesh behind here. These seats are leather with a coating of silicone, I believe, or some type of sealant so that the leather doesn't degrade as fast. So you get more longevity out of it. The interior of the cockpit is just phenomenal, okay? I only have 2 gripes in the cockpit, and these are things, once again, that people can argue or not. But so if you're looking at the steering wheel and the center of the seat, the center line of this steering wheel is about 2/3 over to the right shoulder of this seat. It is not centered. Now, I do not know if that is accurate to the movie. And when I compared it to the Hot Toys is off, but it's off to the right. I will go ahead and remove the Hot Toys canopy. So Hot Toys, stand by. Have to open it all the way, pinch this in a little bit, remove this from there, come up, there we go. So that steering wheel on the Jazzinc is, at least looking from the front, is a little bit too far to the left. So the driver's right shoulder. Now, if you're looking at the steering wheel on the Hot Toys, it is slightly more centered, but it's still off center to the driver's left shoulder. And I'm hoping that that it's capturing that and that you can see that line. As slight as it might be coming up. Let me go ahead and freehand this and see if I can get it. All right, I'm going to try to get this camera in line as best as possible. All right, that is reflecting what I see with my naked eye in terms of the alignment of the steering wheel to the center of the seat. That steering wheel is slightly off center to the driver's or to Batman's left side, okay? So the Hot Toys is off slightly to the left, and then the Jazzinc, and I'm gonna do this as, you know what, actually maybe that's the best angle to get, is top. So you could see there that it is off center, slightly to the right shoulder of the seat. And then on this one, a perfect over the top view is it is slightly off center to the left shoulder of the seat. Now, once again, I don't know which one is more accurate, but that's just something that I noted, right? The second gripe with the interior of this Batmobile is these levers. I didn't know if mine was messed up, but I have a best friend. My best friend ordered the same Batmobile. We have been geeking out about this Batmobile since it got revealed. The anticipation, we could not wait to get this thing in hand. So initially I thought maybe something was broken with mine, but I asked him to go ahead and maneuver these around, and his has the same exact thing. So I'm assuming that everybody's is going to be like this. Now, this is another one of those engineering kind of rattly, it makes it seem less, it's a gripe. I don't know how best else to describe it. But this assembly, so you can operate each one of these levers independently, but it's on one assembly that the entire assembly just kind of rattles back and forth. Now, if I were to want to operate one lever without the other 2 levers, I can hold it. I can hold it and then manipulate this one backwards, right? And I can manipulate this one to maybe the middle. But overall, it's still just kind of, it moves back and forth. It moves up and down, as you can tell. So these type of engineering oversights just, they stampede on the execution. Like how well executed this thing is and how great it feels. This detracts from it. This detracts from my ability to be like, yeah, man, this is the absolute best ever. And this is just another piece that on the Hot Toys, it doesn't feel like that, and I actually prefer it on the Hot Toys. So let's take a look at that one. So these same levers. Now I will say this is a duller red. Okay, it's more of a maroon as opposed to a red. This lever is not as large and doesn't have a gold button like the other one does. And then this one isn't even painted. It has no silver. Okay. That being said, though, I could not manipulate this one as easily or loosely as the other one. Furthermore, if I operate each one independently, it does not move the others. So you can, and not only that, I don't know if you could tell how smooth and how controlled that is, but it's like there's a tightness of the hinge, whatever it may be, that does not allow for this to just kind of flap forward and flap back. Like, if I do it forward, it keeps on going forward every time. It doesn't have any type of recoil, kind of like going backwards. This just has a smoother, sturdier, more well executed feel to it. Okay, and once again, everybody has different opinions, but I can go back and rattle the Jazzinc one again. I can do exactly what it is I did here. Manipulate each lever one at a time. I mean, you could tell every time I tap it, it'll move, but it's not moving super loosely, There's no jiggle or wiggle in it. It moves forward with each tap. Individually, they all operate without impeding or enabling the other ones to move. And now when I go back over to the Jazzinc, let me do it from this angle again. Oh, and you can kind of see it in there too. It's all on one assembly, and once you touch one, the rest of them kind of rattle and roll. It's all one assembly. I don't know if this is a QA issue, if it was engineered like that, or perhaps a piece didn't get put in to allow for there to be kind of like a sturdier feel, like to kind of wedge it against this piece right here. But I mean, the reality remains, I can't independently with one hand move any of these levers without the entire assembly moving, okay? And perhaps that was just an issue on mine and my best friend's, but the reality is I find that highly unlikely to only occur to two. If I had to put my money on it, I'm going to say that that's the way that's engineered, and that's the way that everybody's is going to come. So that's one of those gripes. Overall, though, aside from this being off-centered and this having that rattling, this interior is phenomenal. Like all of the, and I didn't even get that panel. Like the accuracy of the amount of panels, buttons, the details in the designations, like the actual the names of each switch being printed. Let me see if I can zoom into any of those. Yeah, there we go. We got reset. We got set. We have DEM. So I don't know. I don't know what that's for. HT, borrow, A of A. The lengths that they went to make sure that these things appeared accurate and legible is insane. I mean, it's a dedication to detail that is just great. Like I said, it's here. It's just I could forgive this. We're never going to sit and look with the canopy closed. You're never going to sit and see that this is off center. You're never going to understand that is rattly, right? It's not like he's sitting there shifting gears and like, oh man, I hear your transmission's a little loose. It's not going to occur. But once again, it's one of those things where when you start interacting with this beautiful beast, that there are just some details that leave you feeling unsatisfied or kind of let down. It's like, man, you got it so right. And then there's some parts that are just not there, So I will stop there. And that side, this left driver's side and the cockpit will be the end of part 2. And I'll start a part 3 here. And momentarily, you guys will be able to click on part 3. Thanks for tuning in.